Hi, welcome to this Reboxing organization video for Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon from Awakened Realms. In this video, I will be putting together just the core box, organizing the cards, and readying it for play. If you are planning on playing the introductory scenario game, the only things you will need to get started are this Start Here rule sheet and the Open and Play Do Not Shuffle stack of cards taken out of the sleeves. Everything you will need to step through that game will either be referred to in these rules or be in this stack of cards. Next, I'm going to take the dials, the time tracker markers, the red cubes and the larger purple cubes, and the health trackers, take them out of these boxes and put them into the extra baggies that are provided in the box. I have these all bagged up. I'm going to put the purple cubes and the red cubes into the space next to the long row of cards in the box, and then I will put the dials into one of the small spaces next to the small cards, and the time tokens and health markers in the other one. For the small cards, you will see a deck with an item on the top and a deck with secret number 15 on the top. The secrets are not in numerical order as they come, so you'll need to organize those because in the game you're referred to pull a specific number, so it's good to have this deck in order. You will also have the enhancement cards or the attribute skill cards. These are in order in the box, so no need to organize those. Note that 2 is on the back side of 1. And then the item cards, at the bottom of the item cards, there are some additional secret cards, so you'll need to put those with the secret cards. Note that when you have the secret deck in order, it is not sequentially numbered. It goes from 2 to 95. There are 42 cards. There are also multiples of at least one of the numbers. Those should remain in order. The item deck should be shuffled. And then the secret deck is a little bit too big to put all of these cards behind it, so I'm going to put most of them behind the secret deck and put them in one of the small card cubbies, and then I'll just take the aggression enhancements, that's 1 through 12, and put them at the back of the item deck. So the majority of the cards from the big deck row of cards in the box on their reasonably spoiler-free side. I'm going to go through these one by one, trying to show as little as possible. And to organize the event deck, you'll need these 2 stacks out of shrink. For minimum spoilers, cycle through just the left side of this deck until you find this Chapter 1 setup card and place these face down. Those are random events. These here, the front side just doesn't have any actual story spoilers. So these here you're going to want to set aside for the moment. This other deck has the revealed locations and saved locations cards, and then all of the event cards in reverse order. So there's special cards A through I, and then the chapter cards, which I'm going to intersperse with these cards so that all of my chapters are ready to go. I can just take the dark card and any event cards behind it and be ready to play. So after we've collated them, we have Chapter 1 and its cards, Chapter 2 and its cards, Chapter 3 and its cards, and so on. And I'm going to set aside all these event cards until it's time to put them all in the box. To set up the encounter decks, you will need these 2 piles out of shrink. The one of them has the gray encounters and the blue encounters. The other one has the purple encounters with the purple in the upper right, and the green encounters that have the green in the lower right. One other thing to point out about these cards without spoiling anything is that if you look just at the top of the card, you can see the level of the card. Hopefully you can kind of see that. The level 1 cards have this 1 red banner, level 2 have 2, and so forth. So if you have these in the tray, kind of tilted at an angle, it's very easy to pull out the level cards that you need if you keep them stored in this order. To put together the combat and diplomacy decks and advancement pools, you're going to want these 4 stacks of cards out of shrink. You can take the You Are Going Insane and You Are Dying cards off of the top of this and just set them aside and set that with the combat cards. And then for the advancement pool, you will have one for combat and one for diplomacy for each of the 4 player colors. So for now, let's sort them by player color. We're going to have a combat and diplomacy for brown, gray, green, and blue. So we're going to go a little bit into the anatomy of a combat card. I found the same card from all characters, so any spoilers are minimized. The most important bit to find for organization purposes is this numbering system down in the lower right-hand corner. You'll also see that the player color has a separate, each player color has a separate letter associated with those numbers, and the player colors are on the outlines here. They're on the outlines of the top of the card. They're also on these lines that run down the left-hand side. The other thing you want to look for is you want to look for these banners. The banners indicate that they are part of the starting deck of cards, and we'll get back to that in a moment. And then the only other thing you might need to look for is some of the cards in the advancement pool are going to have the character's name on it. We'll get to that. We're going to organize Ailey to see all of her cards, or not see them, but organize them. So each character is going to have 3 sets of cards that you need to be concerned with. 1 through 15 of 25 in the same letter. All of them have this banner on the top next to the name of the card. This is this character, in this case Ailey's, starting cards for combat. You will also see 16 through 25 of 25 with the same letter, without the banner here. These are the standard basic cards that go into the advancement pool. And then you will see another set of cards, 1 through 15 of 15 with the player color, all with the character's name at the top. These cards are the advanced cards for the character and will be shuffled together with that 16 through 25 of 25 basic cards to make this player character's advancement pool for combat. So once they've all been shuffled together, this is going to be Ailey's advancement pool. The numbering system works exactly the same for the diplomacy decks. So when we are done, we will have the combat deck for Ailey, the diplomacy deck for Ailey, the combat advancement pool, and the diplomacy advancement pool. And the numbering system works the same way for all of the characters. So when you're done, you will have your basic cards for all of your characters and their advancement pools. I am currently playing Arev, and I have chosen to sleeve his combat cards and diplomacy cards so that I can shuffle them more easily. They're the only cards in the game that I'm sleeving, and they do fit. If you have 4 people playing and you try to sleeve all the combat and diplomacy cards and you advance them a lot, you may end up running into some space problems with this. But with the save slots, it works pretty well sleeving the combat and diplomacy decks. Note that for Bayor, his basic combat and diplomacy deck is in the Open and Play Do Not Shuffle pack. So if you are looking to organize for the base game and skipping this, that is where you will find his basic 1 through 15 starting cards for both combat and diplomacy. Another side note on this deck, at the back you will find the first encounter cards for the 4 different colors. If you are skipping this but want to actually use these for your first encounter to ease into the combat diplomacy system, that's where you'll find these cards that are referenced in the rulebook. Finally is the stack of large cards. So there will be 4 Order of the Day cards, 1 for each character, or each player if you're playing 4 icon glossaries, and then 1 combat and diplomacy overview card that can be passed around to the active player's turn. And then all of the map cards. These I'm just going to put back into their slot. There's a sort of separate divider, which I think will be more useful during save, but for now I'm going to put these player aid cards into that smaller section of that large card section of the box. And so now we've come to putting everything back inside the box. So I'm going to start with my event cards, and I'm going to put chapter 1 here on the far end so that when it comes time to do my next chapter, I can just look through here until I get to the next dark card like this and know that this is what I need to set up my chapter. So those are going to stay at the far end here. I'm going to follow that with my encounter cards in this first half cubby here. And I'm going to put them in this way where when I lean them, I can pretty easily see the levels of the cards and where a new deck starts to pull what I need when I'm doing that chapter setup as it instructed on these cards. Then at the other end, I'm going to put the random events that I'm going to need for every scenario. So I'm going to be pulling those out. And actually in between I'll put the special events. So I'll have to sort through those just a little bit to make sure I'm not getting any special events when I pull my random events to make my event deck for the chapter. And that all goes in before this first divider in the long card row. For the second phase of the card row, I'm going to put in all of the characters that I'm not currently using. Now note that I am currently playing a solo campaign, so I am putting in all of the cards, basic cards and advancement pools for the characters that I am not currently using into this space. If I were playing with multiple players, I would most likely get some post-it notes or some maybe thick cardstock in the color of the character to put into this space here as a divider. There's not really space for a hard tab to come up above, but if you had a post-it note that folded over, that would work, that sort of thing. And then this is going to be Bayor's stuff. I am leaving my Open and Play Do Not Shuffle deck intact and putting it over here since I'm not currently playing Bayor, in case I want to come back to it later. And it is kind of a tight fit, so I kind of got to get it in there gently. And that pretty much takes care of the other side. All of the small things I am going to put into the slave slots. For my solo game, I'm using the first 2 slave slots for the advancement pool, for combat and diplomacy, and I've shuffled these decks so when I'm doing an advancement, all I need to do is take the first 3 cards, look at them, and then either reshuffle or put them in the back. I can't recall, but in any case, those are there and ready to use during play. And then I'm going to put the sleeved combat and diplomacy decks in the next slave slot. It's a little bit of a tight fit side to side, and it does come up a little bit over the lip, and which means that the lid sits up just a little bit right here. It does still all fit, but if you're a purist, you might want to shave your card sleeves down to minimize that. And then in the final slot, I'm going to put my You're Going Insane cards, the item cards and secret cards I've already obtained for my character. And then this revealed locations card I'm going to stick in the front of the map tiles. I have this little area where I'm currently using that for my player aids and the map tiles I currently have in play in my game. And then the saved event cards I am not used because I haven't stopped in the middle of a chapter yet. But if I had stopped in the middle of a chapter, I would put the rest of my event deck behind this card in this slot here. One last enhancement I want to point out. I purchased this box for 99 cents at Michael's, and it fits quite nicely into this spot here, even with the lid on, which of course you're going to want the lid on. So I am going to actually use this to put my red cubes in. I will put the purple cube still in the baggie underneath, which fits, but it allows me to pull this out, open it up, and be ready to play without messing with the Ziploc.